the workers that worked at the GM plants that they go under almost lost their pay because they were government.
And actually, well, they were government backed up.
Yeah, they were government.
I think they will. The 3%. That's true. Obama has what you guys put him taking care of. So I gather, I don't know.
Get the site specialty.
Yeah,
I really couldn't say because I don't know.
okay. Yeah, the up and down, you know, instead of a guarantee, you know, I can, you know, I don't like the stock market idea up and down.
I know they have it specialized for they specialize in limited pop-ups, etc. for the phone.
The problem is,
And you may find that Emma, I haven't tried it myself. I mean, you may find that Emma is better.
I know.
Doing it up.
I gotta go. Okay, I'm only pretty sure it is.
My problem is, you know,
Okay, I'd like to call the Community Development and Strategic Planning Committee together, and we can have a roll call, please.
Commissioner Collins?
Here.
Commissioner Cross?
Here.
Commissioner Dearzinski?
Here.
Commissioner Engel?
Here.
Commissioner Jaeger?
Here.
Commissioner Longmire?
Present.
Commissioner Mahoney?
Here.
Commissioner Plummer?
Here.
Commissioner Snyder?
Here.
Commissioner Wilkins? Here. Commissioner Skolnick?
Here.
Thank you.
First item is the approval of the minutes of the January 19th. Second. Motion by Commissioner Palmer, second by Commissioner Cross. Any discussion, corrections? If not, we vote on that. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the minutes are approved. First item on the agenda, we have two presentations. The first one is an interpretive signage presentation by Kathy Evans. If you would please just introduce yourself.
Kathy Evans, I'm the Environmental Program Manager with the West Michigan Shoreline Regional Development Commission. And I'm here today to give you an update and also give you an invitation to give input on a project that we're embarking on, which is related to the NOAA Habitat Restoration Project that's been going on along the Muskegon Lake shoreline for the last couple of years. Part of that shoreline restoration project includes some public outreach, and part of it is to do some interpretive signage for the restoration sites along the way. And those different sites are located at Heritage Landing, but also up at Richards Park, where the Muskegon River comes through, the South Branch, also all the way down to Grand Trunk, the Kraken, the lakeside area. There's places all along the Lakeshore Bike Trail. Some are privately owned locations, but most of them are publicly owned locations, whether it's state, county, or city-owned land. So there's a map that shows the original sites. We've added a couple that aren't on this map along the way with some cost savings. And we get a lot of questions about why are you putting, wood in the lake and things like that. And we think it's probably a good idea to let people know with some long-standing interpretive signage. And when we started thinking about that, we started looking around, and NOAA is funding this project through their restoration center. Well, the NOAA Great Lakes Environmental Research Lab at the field station has the signage along the lakeshore channel wall, and they've done a nice job with the interpretive signage there. And there's just one example of kind of the layout they use, the design, the color. And so we started thinking, if we're going to do this interpretive signage with the NOAA project, we should think about what's going on with the shoreline and how we would want it all to have some continuity and some linkage. And how do we start looking at that as one continuous shoreline from the river to Lake Michigan? And so in looking at what's going on now on the shoreline, we thought, down at Lake Michigan we have this nice bright blue and this type of signage. You get further down, you might have a different style. We have some at Rudderman Creek that the Muskegon schools have put up with their colors. We have the Muskegon Lake Watershed Partnership that did a thing with their colors, and then Heritage Landing has the turquoise. But then you get back over to the north side and you have, again, that royal or bright, I don't know what that kind of blue is, but anyway, the same thing they have at the Lake Michigan area. And we pulled together a committee, and Judy Cowell and Bob Lucas are both involved with that group. And we started talking about how we might set the stage for some continuity with interpretive signage for now and for the future. So, you know, why do we want to do this? Well, we have a lot to talk about. We have a rich history, and we've done a lot of restoration, and there are a lot of socioeconomic benefits associated with it. This is an example of kind of a mock-up signage that some folks are starting to put together, very, very draft, not done by professionals yet, for the Grand Trunk area, showing in 1993 the group of people that, that's Oak Ridge Blue, by the way. Okay, so it took a generation to kind of fix this. Up in the upper left-hand corner in 1993, that's a group of community volunteers from the paper mill and the Lakeside neighborhood. And they, at that time, it was a dump. The United Auto Workers, Local 637, used to do the shoreline cleanup, and this group sort of adopted this site and started working on it. So the little girl standing next to the yellow banner in the top left corner, that's my daughter. When she was just a little girl, you know, maybe 10 years old or something, and the group that worked on this over the years transformed it. In 2011, those are my grandkids running down to that shoreline and being able to, you know, enjoy it. The different types of signage, there's different kinds of mounts you can use on rails, you can do upright. There are some places at Heritage Landing we think would be ideal. This picture on the bottom right isn't necessarily one of them, but there are some other locations that I can show you where I think, you know, the upright mount would be appropriate, and then the rail mount. Of course, you need a rail for the rail mount. There's just an up-close picture of the ones that are out by Lake Michigan. And like I said, the color and these designs provide the connectivity we need. Now at Heritage Landing, we're starting to look at one of the signs, what we might want to talk about in the area by what I call the Circle Bridge. Now, we don't have to show what it looked like before, but I threw that in there on top of the other two pictures just to remind people what it looked like before. We don't have to put that out there forever, but the fact is, you know, we've taken a shoreline that was industrial waste and slag and all kinds of material, and we've transformed it into something beautiful. So we want to tell that story, but we don't want to just tell that story. We want to incorporate interesting facts, the socioeconomic benefits, maybe how Heritage Landing was transformed in the first place. It was donated land, you know, and it was a brownfield, it was cleaned up. I did also want to show you, let's see if this might be a better image. There's about 3 different places where I think we should have some. I'm supposed to do that with just the clicker. But there are 3 different locations where we could do signage. One of them would be in the bay by Lafarge, which we've done restoration on. And that's actually an image of the restoration we did in that little bay between Lafarge and the east side of Heritage Landing. And I think that needs to be interpreted. And that would be on the far right side of the upper part of the image. And then in the middle area, we kind of have the Heritage Circle Bridge area and all the flowers, the picture that you've probably seen before. You know, we should probably have maybe a sign there interpreting what's going on there. And then over at the new Rotary Park at Heritage Landing, closer to the YMCA, another sign could go there to talk about different aspects of restoration, the benefits, and other things of community interest. So the way I look at it is it's really not the end, it's the beginning. Now we have a place that's nice. Students can go out and use it as an outdoor laboratory. People are enjoying it. It's good for the water quality, it's good for the habitat. And I'm just really here to tell you a little bit about the fact that this effort is underway. And we have meetings happening with our committee, with the City of Muskegon County, and NOAA, and some other interested folks from the Muskegon Lake Watershed Partnership. Do you have any questions?
Anybody? Jim?
If you can get me back, Keith, or are you done with that?
Oh, sorry.
I want to get back to where the 3 circles were in red, and it showed Heritage Landing, it showed an area, and I'm thinking of the Milwaukee Clipper. You hearing any of that, Kathy, or you know what's going on? You know where I'm going?
Which slide were you on?
Go. That's that.
It's almost to the end.
Almost
The one with the 3 red.
Yeah, that's pretty good. There you go. But the farthest to the top of the
Yeah.
screen,
Mhm.
that area there, we're of course looking at movement, possibility of movement of the tipper. There was some question about that soil on the other side. Does anybody recall that, why that wasn't?
Well, let me just tell you what I know about it. The peninsula, the most recent peninsula that was developed as part of the Heritage Landing kind of park, there's the east side of it and then there's the west side of it. The east side of it, that's actually the schematic from the restoration that we completed in that area. That was just completed last year.
But those are relief lines on the bottom part of it, I take it.
Yeah, and what we did was we scooped out the junk from the bottom. We went down only, I think we could only go like 2 feet. We had to be really careful to not go too deep. Maybe it was 4 feet. We did soil borings and everything in that area. Previously, we tried to get that area cleaned up under the Legacy Act. It wasn't highly contaminated, not enough to get them to clean it up through the EPA project. So we put it into the NOAA grant and worked with the county on input to the design. And we restored it last year along with where, when we did the circle area, So we did work along the shoreline as well as down in the water. Now, what that means is there's a federal interest on that, and you can't go in there and dredge that out and do something else besides maybe floating docks or something like that.
Answer.
Yeah, but I want to give a little background to that too, because I know you're asking that in the context of the Clipper. And we met with the Milwaukee Clipper Board when they were exploring the peninsula at Hartshorn Marina as a possibility. They were working with the city on potentially moving it there. And they had asked me about the sediment contamination and issues there, and I told them what was going on, that we were going to be doing a cleanup. And I asked them at that time about some of the other locations they had looked at. That location on the east side of the Heritage Landing Peninsula, between Lafarge and Heritage Landing, was a site that at that time they said they were not looking at because of the size of the ship and because of the expense associated with improvements that would have to be made and the dredging that would have to be done. So I wanted to make sure that if we were going to do restoration there and get the county's approval for that I had already gone through all that with the Milwaukee Clipper Board, and we met with them several times because they wanted our support for wherever they were going to end up. And that was the one that they did not want at that time.
Because of the cost of the dredge.
If I remember correctly, it was the fact that the boat was kind of long to that area too, I think, and that there was no good way to shore up to more without doing a lot of expensive work and the potential for contamination and the dredging, and it seems like it just boiled down to the expense at that time.
But right now, that cannot be dredged because.
No, now because of the agreement that the county put in place with us on these restoration areas, we have to know upfront when we design these if you're going to want to develop something so we can avoid that footprint. And so, that, around the Heritage Circle area, that was fine. John Warner worked with us a lot on that and some of the other folks, and they said, we don't want people going in there fishing or swimming or anything. We want that off limits. That's what it is. Same thing when we did the little bay. That was in the project at the beginning. The additional work that we're going to be doing now, I'm working closely with Judy Kell, and she's actually got a grant to help fund the additional restoration and for the Rotary Park at Heritage Landing. And she and I are working together on the development plans for that so that we can avoid or complement one another with our restoration with what those plans are, so that we're not restricting some future, idea for whether it's access to the lake or a playground or a bathroom or whatever,
You answered my question.
Okay.
That's not viable. Thank you.
Anybody else? John?
There is restoration in that eastern part, in that slip that the Clipper said they didn't want. When was that done?
If it wasn't last summer, it was the summer before. This is our third year in the project. I think it was last spring, early spring. It was dredged, Great Lakes Dock and materials dredged, and Jackson Murphy did the excavation along the edges, and then they had a landscape contractor do the lifts that soften the shoreline. We're going to be back in there again actually this year doing some enhancement to that. There's some plant failures and
that's where I was going, because that's full of invasive species again. I mean,
Yeah.
the original, whatever was planted in there originally is long gone.
it didn't take very well there, and they're under warranty to go back, but we also are going to do some enhancement with some additional funds and make sure it's done.
I don't fish, but they told me that, some people have told me that the fishing in there is terrible.
Well, I hear both. And I hear people who like trees, and no trees, and you get all of that, but I don't know about the fishing being terrible now. I would actually fish there, and it wasn't too bad. I had to try it out last Father's Day. We went down and fished at a couple locations along the trail, and that was one of them. But we actually put some woody structure in the bottom of the bay after taking out some junk and scrap and some of the top muck. And we, so this should be better fishing there, actually. That's kind of the idea. Should be.
That's what.
And actually, we've had a lot of these places sampled. The fisheries, Water Resources Institute did a fisheries study, and there's a macroplane study, the underwater plants, and as far as I know, at this point, everything's coming back real nice. So, and usually when you do disturb an area, it takes a couple of years for things to come back, and you disturb it a little bit when you're restoring it, but it takes a couple of years for things to come back.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you. The next presentation is for the Muskegon area first annual report, and Johnson.
I dropped a copy of the presentation off at your desks, so you guys can kind of follow along, ask any questions as I go. I did provide Bonnie with the report a couple of weeks ago, so I think you guys can probably take a look at that. I'm not going to go over the whole thing. I'm going to basically hit on two areas of the report, food processing and then the marketing and market analysis that I did at the end of last year. So for the food processing, in early 2011, before I started, Karen met with a group regarding CFP, a centralized food processing facility. She met with some processors and growers. It was a focus group to try to figure out the feasibility of doing what at that point in time was conceived as a centralized food processing facility. So multiple users, specifically looking at the developable area at the wastewater site. So that's along the western and southern corners of the wastewater site, basically at the corner of Apple Avenue and Maple Island Road, just to kind of give you some context there. Over time, the concept has evolved. Centralized food processing facility is still something that's on the table that we're looking at, but we've also kind of developed it to look at things regarding a single processor, a larger processor along those lines, and then other businesses as well. So it's not just centralized food processing facility that we're looking at. Over this year, we've also developed some marketing materials to facilitate communication with potential employers, potential businesses. And I've got the copy of what our packet looks like. I didn't bring copies to everyone because we don't have a ton of them and they're kind of expensive. So I'm going to pass around so you guys can look at it. But there's some different materials in here, including maps of the wastewater site. And also, we're not just looking at wastewater site, we're looking at things throughout the county, other locations where people could locate if it fits their needs. There's also a brochure here in the Muskegon area first, a wastewater brochure. This is going to be updated to be more consistent with the county's marketing and logos, things like that. The agricultural renaissance zone information is in here as well from the state, and then some food processing information. So, and this is the Muskegon area first folder that we had done up recently, and we're using this for a lot of things other than just the marketing material for food processing. So I'll let you guys take a look at that. 9 direct contacts were made in 2011, and that includes Bird's Eye Food. We did a blind bid. Someone came in looking for information. I believe that was to the MEDC. They did a bid that way. And then there was a number of businesses that were named in a lawsuit specifically regarding wastewater discharge, and information was sent to them regarding our facility and what we might be able to do for them. And then other prospective businesses were also identified and communicated with by letter, just letting them know what kind of facility that we had out there. Now I came on board in October, and the first basically 2.5 months that I was on board, I did a marketing and market analysis of the wastewater system, the wastewater site, and what different options we might have. So I'm going to kind of hit on those highlights. This was, I provided some CDs to Bonnie, which I believe you guys got, that had a bunch of information on it, including the marketing report. That was a really big document, so I don't think she did read through all of it. There was an overview in there as well, but I'm going to kind of do some highlights of that right now. This is our current user breakdown, which these numbers might look familiar to individuals. City of Muskegon, as we all know, is the largest current user, followed by Norton Shores, Muskegon Township, Muskegon Heights, and then Sun Chemical, which is our largest business user. All other users make up the remaining 21%. So that's the current breakdown, roughly 13 million gallons per day. And as we all know, our capacity is roughly 43 million gallons per day. So this is the current user breakdown as a percent of the capacity. So the same top users, but this is just when you're looking at the total capacity, so roughly 72+% of unused capacity. The reason I'm showing these numbers is that this was giving me perspective as I was going through it, figuring out how to tackle the problem, where we were looking at it. And I also wanted to know if we lost any other businesses, how much more on the whole would we be? And that kind of answered that question. As you are all very aware, we had a rate increase recently on our wholesale rate. Despite that increase, Muskegon is still very competitive, not only in West Michigan, but in the state of Michigan, and then even throughout the Great Lakes region. The city of Wyoming is the only other municipality that's close to us. The Tri-Cities, Grand Haven, Grand Haven, Spring Lake, and Ferrysburg, I don't have on there, but they are also at 310 like Holland is. That's why I didn't put them on there. Just so you know, the asterisks that are next to Marquette, Grand Rapids, Detroit, Holland, and Wyoming, their rates are given in 100 gallons, so we had to do a conversion to get to what their 1,000 gallon rate is. That conversion chart is in the larger report that I turned in. So we're still competitive. That's the good news. On the wholesale rate, we are competitive. Doesn't make it any easier for people who are used to paying less, but I think that's an important bit of information to have. So I did a SWOT analysis looking at the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats of the system. And I gotta jump forward in my notes for just a second. Obviously, some of the strengths that we have, the system is able to handle high biochemical oxygen demand waste, or BOD waste. Again, that's something that we're all pretty familiar with. There's a possibility of putting in an agricultural renaissance zone specifically at the wastewater site. Obviously, we have other opportunities throughout the county, but the wastewater site specifically, that is an opportunity there. We have been in communication with elected officials at the state level regarding that, MEDC, Department of Agriculture, things like that. They are aware that we have an interest there. We still have, as the last chart showed, relatively low costs at the wholesale rate. Some of our weaknesses, occasionally there's some misunderstandings about Muskegon, whether that's where we're located, the assets that we have, size, things like that. So that's something that you just need to communicate constantly on how, the assets that we have, where we're at, things like that. Utility rates, and this is a Michigan problem. This isn't anything that we can tackle, but it's something we need to be aware of. Our rates are higher than what you're going to find in a lot of neighboring states. So if we're looking at bringing a business in from out of state, that's something that they're going to be able to figure out pretty easily, and something that we need to be aware of. And the last one, rail access, that's specific to the wastewater site. There is not rail access there, as probably most people are aware. So if we're looking at bringing a processor there, they would need to be okay with trucking their product in and out. Opportunities. During the research, I noticed that there was an opportunity for possibly regionalizing the system, which is something that had been explored before. But there's specific opportunities that are presenting themselves now regarding Governor Snyder's encouragement of local governments to start working together in different perspectives. And then there's also some neighboring communities that are looking at expanding wastewater right now, so there could be an opportunity to have that discussion. Marketing ourselves as a blue water economy, and that comes into looking at the whole water system that we have here. We don't just have a wastewater under usage, we have a drinkable water under usage. Both the city of Muskegon Heights and the city of Muskegon have wastewater, or sorry, fresh drinking water that can be used that is currently being underused. So looking at marketing everything from water as a whole. And then also looking at local processors, so this should maybe say regional processors, but other businesses that are in the area, familiar with Muskegon, familiar with West Michigan, who might be looking to expand, working with them and making sure that they are aware specifically of what we have here in Muskegon that is fairly unique. Hart does have a similar system to us, but when you look at other communities, Grand Rapids, Wyoming, Holland, they have what I refer to as a conventional system. That's my term, that's not a technical term. But it uses, you have to have a lot of pre-treatment for those high BOD waste. So that is something, and that high BOD waste is produced when you process food. So that's something to be aware of. Threats, hookup fees. Every municipality has a different hookup fee. And sometimes there are multiple hookup fees within individual municipalities. So it's hard to say to a company, well, if you want to locate in Muskegon Township in this area, it's this rate. If you're in Norton Shores, it's this rate. If you're in Montague, it's this rate. If you're in Eggleston, it's this rate. And so there's a lot of information that needs to be given and for them to process and figure out, okay, so this is, if we do X, Y, or Z, there's going to be X, Y, or Z different costs. It's not a uniform system, and that's just the nature of our beast, and we have to figure out how the best way to tackle that is. White Lake and Muskegon Lake are listed on the EPA's areas of concern, or AOC list. That's not very hard to figure out if we're looking at bringing a company to town that is environmentally conscious. They're going to be able to figure that out pretty easy just by Googling Muskegon and EPA or Muskegon Lake. It's on the first page of the search results. Again, we're moving in the right direction in that respect. We've had Bargman Creek cleanup. There's been a lot of cleanup in the White Lake area. So we're moving in the right direction, but that's something that is we need to be aware of. Another big thing is industrial trends, and this was something that I wasn't aware of until I started doing the research. But when you look at businesses now, when they're building new facilities in particular, they're doing it in a way that they're reusing water before it gets discharged into the wastewater system. It's called gray water usage. And so water coming out of, say, a sink when you wash your hands might get circulated into the system to be used for cooling or for other purposes. So this water will be used 2, sometimes 3 times before it's discharged. So that reduces the overall amount of water that's being discharged. Point being, even if we get a larger producer, 1 or 2 isn't going to replace the flow that we lost when Sappy left. And it'll be multiple producers and it'll be multiple businesses that we're going to be looking at, especially if they're looking at building a new facility, because it's going to make most likely more economic sense for them to find ways to reuse their water before it gets discharged. So that's just a reality that we have to deal with. I had already talked about the excess capacity in the water system, and this is just to give you a rough idea. Between Muskegon and Muskegon Heights, the plant capacity is 65.2 million gallons per day. Right now we average about 16 million gallons a day pulled out of the lake and actually used. Peak flow, we're just under 35 million gallons per day. So even on peak flow days, we have 30 million gallons of unused drinkable water capacity in the metro area of the county. This doesn't count the White Lake area that has their own system for fresh water. So that just kind of, raised some bells with me. We could be marketing the whole water system and talking about, we have this freshwater capacity, we have this wastewater capacity. If you use water in your processing, we're where you need to be, because we've got all these assets. And because Muskegon Area First works not only with the county, but also with the municipalities, including Muskegon and Muskegon Heights, and they are on our boards, it would make sense for us to market all of this together. And we're in that unique position to be able to do that. So that's just a visual to get that one. So some of my recommendations from that report: marking the whole water system, which I was just talking about. seeking out possibly regional cooperation to figure out if that's a viable option to go forward. Continue to seek out food processors. There's been a lot of effort that's gone into this over the past year. We've been working with Rockford Construction to do this proposal. They helped put together that packet. And back to that packet for a second. When we send those out to companies, it won't just be that information, there'll also be company-specific information, so we'll do our legwork to make sure that when we're sending it to them, that there's something in there that's directly applicable to them, and it's not just some generic package that they're getting. So there'll be a letter and some additional information that we know that they're looking for. Consistent branding, what I'm talking about here is we had a lot of different logos going on with the wastewater system, with the different stuff that goes on out there, and the county spent a lot of money branding themselves, and we just got that great new logo. So I'm going to try to make sure that we can get that as consistent as possible, so when someone sees it, they know that's Muskegon County. Talking about the blue economy again, that goes with the whole water system, but then the blue economy also pulls in additional assets that we have that are unique to Muskegon and West Michigan, specifically the port. That's one of the huge assets that we have, and it makes for much easier shipping of products once they have been produced, if we can capitalize on that. And then that's just a cool photo, and that's so I threw that in there too. But I do want to make a point about this photo. There was an article in the Chronicle back in December about this, and I am one of the people in the water, just so you know. And we did this to try to get the attention of New Belgium Brewery because they were looking at doing an expansion. They're based in Fort Collins, Colorado, and there's a campaign in Colorado called Save the Colorado River, and people go in the Colorado River like this and take pictures. So we thought we would do something like this with Love Muskegon. We got their attention. We're not on their list, but it did work to gain their attention. But what it did do, because of the article that ran in the Chronicle and the people that had seen it, the real estate association that meets with the chamber made a comment to the chamber president that they've been getting, they've seen a noticeable increase in calls specifically about breweries because we did this and mentioned breweries. So I just thought that was an interesting thing. I just found that out last week. So.
Yeah, any questions?
We go back a slide or two, and something that, either one.
Okay.
Just tell me the Market Muskegon's full water system.
Yes.
What's lacking there is the connection to the system.
Yes, that is true.
And I think we need to speak on the value of that. I would like to guess if they were connected somehow, that the value added by having wastewater connected to the fresh water would be absolutely huge. It's about $25 million.
I'm not sure what the actual cost of connection would be. I can tell you from my research, there are. I'm not sure if we're the exception to the rule, but I certainly noticed there were more communities that had a water and wastewater system that were one. Detroit, for example, has the water and sewage system of Detroit. Milwaukee has one as well.
That's not my point.
Okay.
My point is that either Muskegon or Muskegon Heights does not reach with their water to the wastewater system.
Okay.
A food processor is going to need a lot of water for their processing, and they're going to pull it out of the ponds of the wastewater system at home.
No.
Okay.
But
you see my point is there's about an 8-mile stretch where those water systems stop and the county wastewater system is. That acreage that we have, if we had water, we've got gas, we've got sewer, we're missing the other component. There probably is well water enough. But I gotta think that manufacturers are looking for a different source.
Well, two responses to that. You are absolutely right. There is not wastewater out there, and that is one of the specific challenges to the wastewater site. The marketing and market analysis wasn't specific to the wastewater site. It was looking at the whole system, the whole wastewater system throughout the county, so we could locate a business in a different area, like say the Lift Tech site on Broadway, if they were looking to build something that has both water and wastewater there. Obviously, the wastewater site has been a specific focus for some time, and it still is, but it's not the sole focus. But yeah, you're absolutely right. That not having water out there is a problem. There is a well across Maple Island Road and a little bit north of White Road that does have potable water in it, and that could at least maybe serve as a stopgap measure if we were to get somebody out there, if they were to use that. Now, I'm not sure if there's any obstacles to that right now or not. I know that the study that we have is a little bit older, and there was a question that came up in a meeting one time about if how much water would the EPA allow you to pull out, and that would be something you need to know, and the processor company you would need to know as well. But until we actually have an interested party and know what their process is, it's hard to answer that question fully.
But municipal water would eliminate.
Yeah, we need to move on.
Pardon me?
We need to go on.
I'm sorry, but I'm looking for my ear.
Anybody else want to say?
Yes, Jonathan, I had a question on the weaknesses of understanding utility rates. Can you expound on that a little bit?
Sure. The utility rates in Michigan are a little bit higher than they are in other Midwestern and Great Lakes states. And in some cases, we're above the national average. And that's just a function of how the utilities work here. And that's a statewide problem. It's not unique to Muskegon. And that was something that was pointed out in an analysis that the Michigan State Product Center did for the county in '04, I believe. And I went and pulled the new numbers just to see if it was still the case, and it's still pretty much the case. So if we're not the highest by any means, but we are higher than the national average in most categories. So,
yeah. The recommendations. Seeking out regional. Have you by any chance reached out internationally?
No.
Why not?
Well, are you talking for hauling or actually like you're talking about hauling waste, right?
Well, either one.
Okay. Well, the regional system that I was talking about in this one would be more of actually connecting a pipe to a neighboring community and piping it in. That is a lower rate than what it would be to truck it in. To truck it in is about 4.5 cents per gallon, and then our wholesale rate's just under $3 per 1,000 gallons. So if you actually are piping it in, it's significantly less, plus whatever the local municipality is. I'd have to check to see if there's any state laws regarding bringing stuff in, from Canada in this instance. And I know that there was an attempt several years ago to not allow solid waste to come in from Toronto. I don't know if there was anything regarding wastewater. But I'll look into that.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it. The next item on the agenda is public comment on the agenda item, and I have 3 requests for public comment. The first one is William Tucker.
It's you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Commissioner. My name is William Parker, and I live at 484 Houston Avenue. And I do have a concern that the Milwaukee Clipper is moving down into the Heritage Landing area. Recently, our community is constantly being under attack. I think the young lady said it earlier, and which is my point. We're trying to keep people out. And when you're trying to keep people out, it does me no good to try to help build a community in this area. I'm saying that because of the fact that I'm looking at down about O'Toole's, I believe it is, condominiums were built. We used to fish down in that area, we used to walk in that area. Alongside, I believe, this shoreline, that little edge over there, a round circle, I think you mentioned that. Now that's restricted where you can't walk out and fish. And I was quite disappointed last year when I seen that sign up there. And one evening I wanted to go fishing, and I'm like, what? So we can't fish there anymore? And with the clipper now being moved right in the heart of my backyard, I think it's an insult. And again, I say it's an attack to our community. Because again, we go down there, and you see people down there on their lunch breaks, in the evening time, walking in the morning, you know, nice and pleasant. But with the blockage of the clipper, I think it's not worth, you know, our time. If it's a benefit to profiteers, I guess it is. But if it's a benefit to the community, certainly it's not. And I hope that you all, commissioners, and whoever is presenting this particular case, really take a look at what you're really doing to our neighborhood. And I think there should be some other agreement or a way in which you can find to perhaps move that to another location. In the past, I knew the Manistee was there, and so was the clipper, but it was on the other side of the train station. So it really didn't cause any problem or anything like that. But putting it right down in the heart of, you know, my backyard, certainly it's a problem. And I think it's a problem to our entire community. In fact, it is an insult to our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Parker. The next person that would like to speak is Red Cloud.
Well, I'll keep this short. You heard me yesterday, or the day before yesterday, about the same topic. I think that the putting a clipper in a heritage landing is kind of an insult to the community. It seems to it flies in the face of good open space planning, where what we need for sustainable growth. You know, you need business, you need jobs, you need things that will draw tourism, but you also need open space. And I see this thing as just being a massive ship right at the end of Heritage Landing. It's just going to sit there. Once it's there forever. And a few years down the line, when this thing turns out to be the dinosaur that I think it's going to be, what are you going to do with it? You'll be stuck. So anyway, I think that you ought to think seriously about what's the return on investment, how long is it going to be if you're ever going to do this, and if you're going to do it somewhere else. Don't do it at Heritage Lane. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Okay, the next person who would like to speak this morning is there.
Hi, I'm kind of like on the same board with them, but I want to go one step further. I can stand and look out my upstairs bedroom window and look at Heritage Landing. And I go there all the time. I pick up litter. It's part of my community. And the other day I was having a conversation with one of the movers shakers of downtown. And he said to me, it's a county park and the residents should have no say. And I thought, wait a minute. This is my neighborhood. This is where I live. This is where our children go on their bicycles to see the sunset. It is our only open space where there's no gunfire, where we're welcome. People of color, people of any social dynamic in this entire county can go to Heritage Landing and enjoy the sunset. And I think if you take that away, I agree with Mr. Parker, it's an assault in our community. I think that if you do even take it one step further, you need to come to Nelson neighborhood, which starts at Southern Avenue and ends at the lake, and ask the residents, what do we want for the future of our neighborhood? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. All right, then the last person is Kathy Evans, who wants to, speaking as a private citizen, I guess.
I forgot to ask Bob to speak earlier.
This is regarding the earlier presentation on interpretive signage. Another part of the plan is to include the expanded information about the restoration efforts along the lake onto a page of the CBD website where we will be able to put QR codes on each of the signs so people can use their phone to get to additional information about the restoration efforts on the along the lake.
Or additional information about the county,
about the county. Really, yes,
yeah.
You could really put any information on there because it would be a web application. You'd be able to add information about the lake, the county activities, a variety of different topics. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on to items for consideration. The first item is CDSP 12/03-2. The item is to authorize entering into a feasibility study between Muskegon County engineering staff and the SS Milwaukee Clippers engineering consultants.
So moved.
Second. We have a motion by Mr. Snyder, second by Mr. Cross. Discussion.
Two things. The first one is, can we legally do something with a private group with county funds to look into something like that?
I would refer that to.
Yes. It's not uncommon.
Okay, and then I like the idea that it says that they'll look into other areas for implication. I am also in favor of, but I want that Clipper downtown, don't get me wrong. But, so that's my, that's what.
Mr. Womack.
Yes, just to the community, I did speak with Andrew Hahn about that, and he assured, even though this is a feasibility study, he did assure me that, and I encouraged him to at least go to the communities and speak to the community to see how they felt about it, and assured me that he would before anything else major took place, and that was part of the study, to get you guys' input on what he felt about it, and we should be able to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Womack.
Yes, this decision, this study will be brought back to us before there's a decision made, so we'll have other options. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Anyway, yes, Mr.
I think the last line in the suggested motion is what there's concern. No action to move the ship from its current location here is implied or suggested at this time. It's simply looking into various options. That's all this is asking to do.
Mr. Jagger.
I'd still like to see a resolution by the city saying that they want this done from my personal point. And that would take them having a community forum of some sort to get that approved. That thing.
Anybody else? All right, we'll vote. All those in favor of the motion as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the motion passes. The next item is CDSP 12/03-3. It's to authorize the board chair to execute the ground lease between the Child Abuse Council of Muskegon, County of Muskegon for event parking at Heritage Lane.
Second.
This is during the hot rod and the cold. So we have a motion. Any discussion on this?
Are we offering this opportunity to other charitable organizations in the community? Or because they did it before, they're going to do it again?
We were contacted by them, so.
Okay, I think we need to publicize this as an opportunity among a number of organizations in the future.
Anybody else? All right, we vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Jim, did you?
John, the way it came down last year is we found ourselves, we have to be prepared. We found this group that we're doing, but I agree with you 100%. That's how the child abuse comes in. This thing is growing on us.
That's fine, but we need to, that opportunity needs to be available to all of the groups in the.
Okay, that motion is passed. The next item is old business. Does anybody have any items of business? The next item is new business. Anybody have any items of new business? Public comment on a new topic? If not, I need a motion to adjourn. Second. All those in favor say aye. Aye.